Yeah. Sorry, guys. So obviously, right before the open, there we just got jacked up. I don't know if there was like a headline or something, but there's some pretty aggressive extensions here. I'm interested to see if they hold. We're just a few moments past the open here. I can't even tell if my Thinkorswim is slow or what happened. Oh no, let's see. Thinkorswim right now for me is lagging. But we're in a more aggressive extension sequence now. We went extension to extension, and then basically it was just like straight up, really fast move here from 9:15 to 9, to 9 right before the bell, and then we completed that 27.65 profit target. No, I was on mute. On mute. I'm looking for a pullback to 61.5 here. My Thinkorswim is not moving, but I have a separate. There we go. Yeah, we just got aggressively bid right into the open, which I didn't want to see that because that kind of gives us a little less room to run around with. Popping without pulling back. And this is just a really aggressive extension. I have a hard time wanting to trade. I'm looking for 61.5 or 59s. But for whatever reason, I don't know. Is anyone else having problems with Thinkorswim being slow? Let's take a look here. Oil's just running away. S&P's not even pulling back. Dow's ripping out, kept playing catch up. Remember, the Dow was pretty, I don't want to call it weak, but it was, the market that wasn't strong. We were just ripped through that profit target, and the S&P can't even pull back. All right, guys. So right now we had this Russell here go up and complete its extension at the 1559. There's obviously a pretty large divergence in the Nasdaq. I don't really know. Maybe it's Apple leading that lower, but definitely something to pay attention to. Will probably come full halfway back before catching a bid. That's down at 70.35. And then this S&P, I mean, we've come up really aggressively here this morning. So if we start breaking down through some of these more aggressive extensions, there could be a deeper pullback here. So if we get, say, below 2761 in the S&P 500, there just could be a deeper pullback in play. And then if the Russell cannot hold this 1552 level, just something to be careful of, because there was a pretty large gap up here and the Nasdaq is just not following through. I did read the other day that Warren Buffett cut his stake in Apple, so maybe Apple's getting sold on that news, possibly dragging down the Nasdaq, but it doesn't really matter regardless. It just, the fact is the Apple or Nasdaq here is weak. The Russell there came down, held its support zone. S&P did as well. For continuation in the Nasdaq, just watch every move down we make. Watch for us to get back above the significant points of that move down. And if the Nasdaq can start participating, I think that'd be good for all of the markets. But if it can't, we'll probably have a little more of a choppy session. And for those of you who are commenting on the YouTube channel during the MLT Power Hour, I only really look at the comments in the Discord. So take your comments to the MLT chat in the Discord and you'll get a response there. But I do not watch both chats. Here's the full halfway back from the overnight low. In the Nasdaq at 70.35. And it's not even something I'd want to step in and buy. It's something I'd want to see somebody else buy. And then, you know, if we can take out some swing highs, I want to see the Nasdaq really get it back above 70.50. Oil is going to be coming into supports here. It's 55.62 and then 55.52. Those are two support levels in oil. The Russell, remember guys, from the morning trade plan was the strongest index. And that's holding true here. Well, actually, the Dow is up on a percentage basis, but that last pullback here was a really, really nice pullback in the Russell. If the NASDAQ can do what these other markets have done, which is complete their higher time frame profit targets. That could be a move to 71.10 later today. Obviously, that's much higher. You know, that's a 60+ point move. But we need to see it get back above these lows it's gone through. Yeah, I mean, I just don't talk the whole time, Rich, and then I mute myself if I'm not talking to drown out any background noise. Now, I don't always mute myself, but yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be any issues with the broadcast here today. Occasionally there is, but yeah, it's just me not talking. Basically, is when you're hearing nothing. I'm saying nothing. I mean, these markets are pretty volatile right now. We're having reversals signs right now in the S&P. I want to see the S&P needs to hold 27.63.5. This morning we were looking for an extension from 27.41 to 75, the high. That never traded because we just went straight up into the open. So my concern is that if, you know, right now, if we can't continue up very aggressively, like if we start trading back below really 64s, 63 halves, we're probably going to get a deeper pullback here. And the NASDAQ has gotten that deeper pullback. So ideally, if we do continue up from here, I want to be getting long the NASDAQ. But in order for me to kind of confirm that we have more buyers than sellers in the NASDAQ, I need to see it take out a swing high. So my ideal trade setup right now is for us to break above, call it like 70.65 here in the NASDAQ, and then look for a pullback. So that could take some time to set up. Otherwise, the Russell and the Dow are the two indexes that I would want to really, if I'm going to do a continuation sequence, those are the markets I'd want to pay attention to. But it's a concern of mine that this Nasdaq is not catching a bid like the rest of these markets. So for me, the big thing to pay attention to is the Nasdaq following through with the other markets, and then when it does, looking for a long entry. Also, we have entries here in oil at 55.62 and 55.52 as support levels that need to hold. That's a halfway back short complete. See, it's you know, it's important to kind of realize we've gone nowhere from the open. Wait for this Nasdaq to prove that it can stay bid. I don't watch the DAX futures, but if I did and saw a mini flash crash, I would be more interested in what happened after it, rather than look at that. A lot of movement in the overnight session here, guys, but like a whole lot of nothing. One thing I'll look for is the potential divergence. Like if the NASDAQ can trade this 70.35 and quickly get a bid, because that's the full halfway back long. These other indexes, the Russell provided a nice entry. The Dow is just really in a tight range. But, I mean, the sequences absolutely are bullish here. It's just a matter of finding a solid entry. It's a matter of finding a solid entry. The S&P has a support level at 63.75 that needs to hold. 63.75 and 65 quarter are the two levels. 65 quarter is a 38% retracement of an extension, and those targets are 27.74 half. So it is almost a 10-point profit target. And then this NASDAQ right now is a front run, but it's going nowhere. It's a complete wedge. But I'm just under the assumption that when this wedge breaks, there'll be an eventual entry, and then the rest of the day will kind of play out, and the NASDAQ will follow these markets, at least as a test up to highs, because we are aggressively bid. Gold came in for another test here of the 1319 support. Yeah, so one of two things is going to happen. One, it's either going to trade 70.35, or we're going to get a break above the previous swing high. And I'm just going to mark that up. Unless we can break this swing high, you really don't want to be aggressive chasing it. Like if we traded up to 70.65, like it's just, you don't want to chase a loser higher. See if 70.35 needs to catch a bid. Otherwise, this day is going to have a deeper pullback sequence, which is what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the morning longs getting shooken out, the ES getting down to 59 or 56. There's 63 half in the ES. It's really where they need to come in. And then there's a divergence where you got a new low there in the NASDAQ, new low. Is that a new low in the day in the S&P? No, it's not. So new low on the NASDAQ, new low of the day, but we need to see follow through. Can't just be a new low. It needs to be a new low that gets above the previous swing high. So now if we get back above 70.55, right up here at the swing high, that reverses some things. But if it can't get back above there, then it's just a new low that can make a new low. But there's, you know, that's 63.75 I talked about in the ES with the upside target. It's been a good reaction, 3 points. The S&P has more buyers. For whatever reason, I just took a look at some of the, like Amazon, Apple. They're just kind of like hanging on. They're not really moving. But then, you know, Microsoft was strong. Netflix is strong, so... And look at this. This Russell's gonna trade up to 1564. When we, I mean, don't discount the Russell here, guys. The Russell is the strongest market, and it is the most technical index in my opinion right now. Its profit targets are 1565, right? So this NASDAQ can play ball. We get some other things moving. It's just hard to divert such a divergence with the market and have them all really go. But then again, if you look at this on like an hourly chart, let me go here. This is a potentially really good pullback. Yeah, that's what I read. Buffett cut back on Apple. And oil's coming out of its support zones. We had 55.62 and then 55.52. 55.55's traded, so it was a little bit of a front run of 55.52, but 55 62 traded, dipped a bit, but we've rallied 10 ticks from that entry point. On a continuation there in oil. But if you look at this, you look at this move in the Nasdaq, like it was super aggressive to the upside. You basically right before the open had a explosive candle higher, and then we just kind of retraced to where we were at 8 o'clock in the morning. So the actual price action of this is definitely still bullish. I think the market got a little ahead of itself early into the open, but you want to see, and we can look at really these prior highs. Okay, these prior highs of yesterday, then that's what the Nasdaq needs to get back above to just, but until that happens, it's just every new low, it's just going to be this consolidation that you're going to waste a lot of time in. So watch that. So I marked up 70, 57 of those, basically those prior highs. It's when you break resistance, the pullbacks after the resistance breaks are the ones that are going to react. Those are the ones that are going to go, okay, I can run this NASDAQ for 20, 30 points in the next half an hour. But it's like when you have a pullback, makes a new low, we don't get above resistance, it's just a consolidation that'll chop and bore you. So understanding what it takes to break above that consolidation is really helpful when determining entries and targets. Because if we're above resistance, it's much easier for the market to run. Much easier. So pullbacks after breaks of resistance are going to act better you can see that the Nasdaq's basically held the value area high. I would not want to see it get back through that value area high. Otherwise, you have the possibility of the rotation to value area low. All right, we'll see if we can pop through the prior day's high. But yeah, as you can tell probably by my verbiage here today, I'm really focused on being long the NASDAQ. It's just got the deeper pullback, and when it finally continues, like the rest of the market should, we should get up to 71.10. Versus I see most of these other indexes like basically already at their profit target. So I'm more interested in the one that has yet to hit it. I would actually, I'd be interested. Andres, that's a good question here. So if you got, let's take a look at like really what the market. So the market is up. Generally speaking, the overall trend has been higher. So take that into consideration when deciding what charge trade to take. So I would say the charge trade in the Dow, because it's a long charge trade, which is the direction the market's been trading, has a higher probability of completing. So I would completely avoid it in the NASDAQ for a few reasons. One, we traded halfway back long from the overnight session as a support. Two, and most importantly, the direction of the trend has been higher. We've broken out on new highs. So I would be interested in the setup for the Dow. So now we're approaching that prior day high. Now you want to watch any sequence that develops out of the NASDAQ. Right now it'd just be like a halfway back long should hold. So that's how you're going to get your entry. Do we have any resistance in CL? There's an old profit target of 55.75. that's coming into play right here. But other than that, I just have targets above. Just, you know, this 55.75 was resistance here on the first test. That's what we're gonna need to get above for longs. And if we get above that, then the next area is 56.17. But if you look at oil on a daily chart, you know, we're coming up to the prior highs. And I am on the CLJ19 contract. Okay, so you want to mark up that high from the 4th of February. You want to be aware of that. That is just above. And that's just highs of the current contract. You're welcome. everything eventually gives an entry, Lou. It just depends on how aggressive you want to be. For me, it's like, you got the full halfway back or identify an extension sequence, but I want to see an extension run to target before I want to take it. Like, I'd rather be interested in a same anchor new high at a higher price than taking a trade that fails. Gold is broken down off its extension, so there's a possibility we trade that either the next halfway back from that long area, which would be at 1316.6. That would be the next support. And I really like that because it lines up with the high we broke out of. But if 1316.6 doesn't hold, we got 1313. So I'm going to look for an entry into gold. I was long and I cut that position as it looked like we were about to break. But I'd be interested in getting long in at 1316.6. There we go with the 55.52 there in CL. Quick 15 tick bounce. 55.56 or 55.62 is traded. We bounce, you know, up to 55. You know, it's basically a 20 tick bounce, but then we just come back, get a nice clean test of the 55.52. If this extension breaks in oil, I would, you know, be looking at potential short sequences for sure. It's a big old gap in the S&P. That, I mean, that's a big gap to hold. If we run from this point, I mean, look at this gap. We are most likely going to begin trading all the way up to the highs of December. You know, 2807s. So it's a pretty significant gap in the S&P. And just another day of trend continuation. What we'll want to look at here in the Nasdaq too next is getting above the high of the week, Wednesday. Not including this overnight high, but that Wednesday high of the week. Above that, that's when the Nasdaq really, all of a sudden again, there's not going to be a lot of resistance. And then 7110. On the Dow, hourly high of Feb 5th to high is a good pullback for longs. Let me take a look. Yeah, well, I would use this high, not the 5th, but the 6th. But yes, that would now be an extension pullback. That would now be the daily sequence. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I do think you're going to have a more aggressive sequence actually develop from the high of Thursday, Makari, but that's a very good question. The high of Thursday to high will be the next very important pullback level. All right, guys, it is 9:30 here. Let me shoot me your questions. Otherwise, I'll be catching you guys Monday. I'm probably not going to trade the rest of the day. My best friend just got to town, so we are going to enjoy it. Only got a couple weeks left here. Everybody take care. Have a great weekend.